Everybody. Happy Friday night. It's Friday. I could not be more excited that it's Friday night. I get to come on here and hang out with all of you guys. I hope you're excited it's Friday too. I'm Anjanette Levy, and thanks so much for coming and hanging out tonight. I hope the sound sounds okay. When I was getting ready to come on here, it said I was muted, and I'm like, why am I muted? I should not be muted. So hoping everything sounds okay, looks okay. Looks like it looks kind of okay, but should be sounding okay. Remember, if you're just tuning in, like and subscribe. Please subscribe if you're just joining. I have a little channel here, and if you subscribe, hopefully it will grow and get a little bit bigger. Dead in the Water says, I am more excited that it is Friday. You might be more excited that it's Friday. I actually, this week was not bad. It was a pretty good week, I think. It has been raining like crazy here where I live. So just raining, but we've been really lucky, and I feel really fortunate because we didn't get the worst of it. So there are a lot of people who are a lot worse off, obviously, than we are. But there has been a lot going on this week in a lot of cases. We're going to talk, of course, about the Bryan Kohberger case first. There are other cases that I would like to talk about. Lori Vallow probably being one of them. I'll be covering that case over on Law and Crime pretty heavily. But of course, I'll be covering Bryan Kohberger too. The big hearing, one of the big motion hearings for all these motions in limine that have been filed is coming up next week. And while we did get all of the paper kind of dumped on us with all of the kind of new information over the last 2 weeks or so, 2.5 weeks, we did get a couple of new filings trickling in over the last week or so that had some interesting information in them. One thing that we kind of touched on a while ago was those text messages between the surviving roommates. And so, I covered it over on Law and Crime, of course, on Crime Fix. I covered it a couple of times, maybe 2 or 3 times. But more things have kind of come out about it. And there's some other stuff going on with it that was filed that didn't really get a whole lot of attention. Maybe people are just sick of talking about it. Oh, thank you, Elizabeth Casey. That's super, super sweet of you. Also, we are going to be talking about, we will be talking about the Cy stuff. That got a lot of attention. Cy, of course, is the cell phone expert for Bryan Kohberger. That got a lot of attention when I covered it on Crime Fix this week. I should probably drop the link in for the podcast I produced on that, because people were like surprised that I covered it, which I thought was kind of interesting. Of course I covered it. I read through it. I read that affidavit for you guys. I don't know if I went through the whole thing. I can't remember, last Sunday. I think I told you guys, it just seemed like it was a little repetitive and said the same thing over and over, and could have probably gotten to the point and said things a little more clearly. And I think it probably left out some key stuff. But at the same time, if he's right, and I don't know if he is, there could be some big problems there. So, hi, Mel Mac. Thank you so much for, Mel Mac is kind of, I guess, being a mod for me, as is Webby, which they were very sweet to agree to do this. So thank you so much. And the docket is here. Beautiful Messy Ball is here. Hi, Anjanette and chat. It's going to be a busy couple of months. Lori, Karen Reed, Kohberger, Stearns, Diddy. Yes. Stephen Stearns is one that I want to talk about. I've covered that case a lot as well, with Maddie Soto's murder. And I really need to dig into that one. I've dug into it a lot at work, but I need to dig into it with you guys, because that case to me is so insane. Just horrible. Maddie Soto, poor little Maddie Soto, should still be here. And that's another case where I know the docket's been knee deep into it, and I've kind of like spent hours going over documents and through photos and a lot of stuff. And wow, Stephen Stearns, wow, that's all I can say. Yikes. Wow. Dead in the water says Stephen Stearns makes me so sick to my stomach. Yeah, the whole thing is just horrible. So, but let's get started right now. Let's go back to Cyree really quickly because do you guys remember the whole Cyree thing about what happened with the whole what was it? It was the him saying they didn't get the timing advance records. So I covered this on Crime Fix the other day. And basically, Cyree said he's the cell phone expert for Bryan Kohberger. And he came out with this declaration. Ann Taylor, Bryan Kohberger's lawyer, wanted him to testify or does want him to testify at the motion hearing next Wednesday. And she wants him to testify about all this stuff that she, says the state has done wrong or not produced. And Judge Hippler said, well, I don't need to hear from him. And I don't need to hear from your Amazon Click expert either. They can file declarations. And if I do need to hear from them, they can testify via live stream. You don't need to bring them in here. So he files a couple of declarations basically saying, that the state's methodology, the FBI agent who did the work on the cell phone stuff, they haven't disclosed their methodology, the road test data or drive test data, pardon me. And he's claiming these timing advance records, which are really precise in determining a cell phone's location, more so than these call detail records. He and Ann Taylor are claiming the state has these records and they're just not disclosing them. Well, that would be very bad if they were doing that. It would be really, really bad. And basically the state is saying, look, back in 2022, when this happened in November, December of 2022, AT&T was only retaining these timing advance records for 7 days. So we got timing advance records for, 2 of the murder victims' phones. They were AT&T customers, plus 3,800 phones for the tower dumps we did. They got all the AT&T phones that were bouncing off the towers for Moscow. So we got those timing advance records because we got a warrant and got that stuff within 7 days of the homicides. This is their claim, the state's claim. Kohberger was not identified as a suspect. His name was not given to Moscow PD until December 19th. So his phone records were requested on December 23rd. The 7-day retention period for the timing advance records had thus passed. The state's claiming we don't have these timing advance records for Bryan Kohberger. But Cyree maintains, oh, yes, they do. But he didn't go over this whole retention period issue in his declaration. He didn't address that. He's saying the FBI had some other way to get these records back in December and November of 2022 without going through this legal demand center. And so, there are some questions that still need to be answered here. So I'm like, why do they care so much? So the call detail records allegedly are what has been used to do this analysis. So I went back into this old hearing from January. I'm going to play this clip. I kind of mashed like 3 clips together of Ann Taylor talking about Bryan Kohberger's car, or a white car, Bryan Kohberger's phone, and then cameras in Pullman, Washington, that captured a white vehicle. And then the direction that Bryan Kohberger's phone may have been pointing at the time that he was out driving around at the same time. So let's play this clip. Again, these are 3 clips kind of put together back to back.
In the first 8
started playing already.
and
I'll play this and then we'll talk about it. And please remember to like and subscribe, spread the word and all of that good stuff.
And we're going to talk about minutes difference of time. In the first AT&T warrant, in that affidavit, the police officer talks about 2:42 a.m. that WSU cameras, because they start looking at WSU cameras after the IgG identification, they find a white car that they say is an Elantra at 2:42. So they get the phone records, and then it becomes 2:44 that they say Mr. Kohberger's leaving his residence, 2:44 a.m. And the place near Bishop Boulevard where one could turn to go to Moscow at 2:42 is inconsistent with 2:44, but they don't correct that. They don't say that vehicle at 2:42 cannot have been the right white Elantra running around that night.
Okay. So Ian Taylor, did you hear that? It could not have been the right Hyundai Elantra, the right white Elantra running around that night. So she's basically saying there was more than one Hyundai Elantra running around that night. We know that there were I remember, and if I get this wrong, sorry. But back then I thought they said there were 22,000 white Elantras and I forget what the area was. But she's talking about now there's more than one white Elantra in that vicinity. So let's continue.
Because we now know it was at 2:44 a.m. They want to keep that in there because they want the car positioned like it's going to be going to Moscow. And that towards Moscow, and that's not what happened. They then report the phone stops reporting to the network at 2:47 a.m. And that's not right. We submitted their cell experts report that say the phone stops reporting at 2:54 a.m. We submitted 2 affidavits to you from our experts who have worked with the call detail records, and that's just not right. Don't get caught up in thinking 7 minutes don't matter here. We're talking about ground that can be covered in a vehicle in a short time. We're talking about 2 towns that are fairly close together. And so the way a car points when they go off a network matters a whole lot in this circumstance. That's not corrected in any of the affidavits. That's the part that's really exculpatory to Mr. Kohberger, is what direction, when the phone stops reporting to the network, what direction is the car traveling? And you can know that based on the cell towers, the handoffs from tower to tower as it tracks where a phone's going.
Okay. So handoffs and where we can track where a phone is going. So we're getting a little technical there. So I'm not going to be able to get into that. But yeah, I mean, I kind of understand what she's talking about from covering other trials and talking about this stuff. But I almost wish, I mean, she's talking about this because obviously she's had these conversations with Cy Ray and they're talking together about this stuff. And so she knows more about this than what we do. Maybe some of you guys in the chat are really up to speed on this, but she's talking about these handoffs between towers. And I remember covering some other cases where they talked about the side of the tower, like which part of the tower it pings off of, and all of this stuff. And oh, goodness me. So she's basically saying, and I'm going to back it up like about 20 seconds. She is basically saying that they can tell what direction Bryan Kohberger's car was pointing based on what data they have. And they don't have these timing advance records. Beautiful Messy Ball, I think you said that they weren't doing timing advance stuff until 2023, but I don't think that's right. I think they were. AT&T was doing the timing advance stuff. They have been. They've been doing it. It's just now they're retaining the records. I think starting in 2023, they started retaining those timing advance records for 13 months instead of the 7 days. So I think they've always done the timing advance records. That was my understanding from reading it. And they even did it back in 2022. I think the state's first document about this, or first motion, or maybe their response to something about it, I think it might have not been totally accurate, and it may have just been an oversight. So, but I'd have to go back and look. Okay, so let's back it up like 20 seconds and let that play again.
We're talking about two towns that are fairly close together. And so the way a car points.
Oh, I want to go back to the 7 minutes, that whole 7 minutes thing. You know, they're talking about the 7 minutes. That's super critical.
We submitted their cell experts report that say the phone stops reporting at 2:54 a.m. We submitted 2 affidavits to you from our experts who have worked with the call detail records, and that's just not right. Don't get caught up in thinking 7 minutes don't matter here. We're talking about ground that can be covered in a vehicle in a short time. We're talking about two towns that are fairly close together. And so the way a car points when they go off the network matters a whole lot in this circumstance. That's not corrected in any of the affidavits. That's the part that's really exculpatory to Mr. Kohberger, is what direction, when the phone stops reporting to the network, what direction is the car traveling? And you can know that based on the cell towers, the handoffs from tower to tower as it tracks where a phone's going. The FBI knows how to do this. They chose not to do this. They chose to pick a time 7 minutes before it really stopped reporting. And they chose to make a map that showed a direction that that phone wasn't traveling in to create a false narrative for the magistrate to rely on to find probable cause. Moscow has, I think, 2 cell towers that service the town. Those cover places that one shops, places that one eats, places that one gets gas in.
Okay, I let it get a little ahead of me for a second. She's talking about Moscow now, which I should pull up this other document when we talk about that. So she's basically saying, you know, they're saying it stopped reporting to the network when it wasn't. So that's kind of interesting, because, and I wish we had I need to get some kind of, you know, expert on here to talk about this. But here's my question. We need Celebrate. We need the Celebrate report. You know, Celebrate, remember you cover trials in the Murdoch trial, Celebrate. Karen Reed trial, Celebrate. We heard a lot about Celebrate, you know, where they basically, they download everything off your phone. They can tell everything. I remember the Murdoch trial. I was like, oh my God, this cell phone stuff has gotten crazy advanced, where they were talking about which way Maggie Murdoch's phone was, the orientation it was going, and how it was, you know, like going like this, and whether it was like this. And it was insane. And it was super, it was super interesting to me. But at the same time, I was like, this is insane that they can tell all of this stuff that's going on. The Celebrate report will tell us, indeed, did the phone stop reporting to the network because it was turned off, because it was in an airplane mode, or because it just wasn't hitting a tower somewhere. Like you hit a dead zone. Like I'm out and about driving around and I hit a dead zone. So let's look at all these comments. Oh, Beautiful Messy Ball says he's definitely losing weight. I'm sure the vegan options in jail are limited. Yeah. Is it the vegan options that are limited, or is it like he's stressed? Because I don't know if I think the guy is somebody who is a stressed out guy, given everything we're reading about the autism spectrum disorder. What else have we heard about? The other disorder where now I'm at a loss for what it was called. The he had trouble tying his shoes and stuff. But I miss, I feel like I feel bad now, because remember when I was telling you guys that about him having that shirt buttoned all the way up and not having the tie on? Well, obviously I was wrong, because if you look on that, I'm zooming in. You guys can't probably see what I'm doing, but look right there. It looks like that shirt, that gray button up. And thank goodness, Judge Hippler, dry sass, as I call him. We're not hearing him talk in any of these clips, but he, right there, the gray shirt, it looks like he has it buttoned up, and I can't tell if he's wearing a tie. Actually, it looks like he is wearing a tie. For some reason, I thought he wasn't, but it looks like now that I look at it more closely that he might be wearing a tie. But Judge Hippler's Zoom cameras, way better than Judge's. Can I just say that's a major improvement? Yeah, Beautiful Messy Ball. It was something having to do with fine motor skills. Right. Well, the OCD, yeah, but it was developmental something disorder, and I'll pull it up here in a minute because I wanted to talk about that. Hannah UK says, I was going to take a walk, but then I realized it's almost 1 a.m., so decided not a smart choice. No, not a smart choice at all. I will tell you right now, I totally subscribe to that old saying that nothing good happens outside after midnight. I think it's totally, totally true. So please, please do not go walking outside by yourself after midnight or even after 11 o'clock. Graciela Gracie G, thank you so much. You are watching from Australia, 11 a.m. there. Well, that's amazing. Thank you so much. And thank you for the contribution. Remember, guys, to like and subscribe, thumbs up, all of that good stuff. I really appreciate it. And if you have questions or comments, I'm going to put this up on the screen too, because I keep forgetting to do that. So the next point that Ann Taylor is going to hit on, and I think this is super important given the fact that they have filed a motion about vague and vague testimony of experts. And so I had that pulled up, and then I X'd out my little thing. So sorry about that, guys. But I'm going to pull that up. Here it is. Vague and undisclosed expert testimony. So that they're saying we have the state's got all these experts and they're saying all of this stuff, and yet they haven't given us a lot of the information to back it up. So they're really mad about it. And they went through one, Ann Taylor did. And she talked about what she believed they should have been given and why she thinks certain experts their testimony shouldn't be allowed and stuff like that. So I will be really interested to see when we finally get to the bottom of this whole text message brouhaha, or not text message, I'm sorry, cell phone record brouhaha, because to me this is very simple. They either kept the record, they either have these timing advance records from 2022 for Bryan Kohberger's phone, or they don't. It's a yes or no. They retain them for 7 days, then the only relevant period, is the time of the homicides. And if they are going back, as they say they are, from June of 2022 to the time of the homicides, That's a relevant time period too. If they're going to go back that whole way, that's relevant. So if they were able to actually get that information, if they're able to get that information and they have it, then they need to hand it over to the defense. They said they didn't have it. She claims that Brett Payne said that he had seen it. I went back and looked at the hearing. Maybe I need to go look at it again from May of 2024. I did not hear him say that, but maybe I need to go back and look again. So let's look at this whole vague testimony thing. But I want you to listen to what she says about all of this stuff. About the cell towers. Here, let me play this. Let's see. Here we go.
Handoffs from tower to tower as it tracks where a phone's going. The FBI knows how to do this. They chose not to do this. They chose to pick a time 7 minutes before it really stopped reporting, and they chose to make a map that showed a direction that phone wasn't traveling in to create a false narrative for the magistrate to rely on to find probable cause. Moscow has, I think, 2 cell towers that service the town. Those cover places that one shops, places that one eats, places that one gets gas in Moscow. From the records, you can see handoffs, and so you know where a vehicle is going. You can know whether it's stationary or not. You can know whether it's parked, looking at a particular place or not. Based on those records, we also provided the records just so the court would know there's a volume of records. I don't expect the court to decipher those records. But based on those records, they absolutely knew that Mr. Kohberger wasn't around that residence, wasn't parked near the residence, didn't stop and have his phone in a stationary position at that residence. They absolutely knew that that's not what was happening, but they put it in there to make a connection that didn't exist. They put it in there so that the judge would think that this was the right person, and they shouldn't have done that. They knew that was incorrect. They also...
Okay. So Ann Taylor is saying there are 2 cell towers in Moscow. And apparently, I think there's one in Pullman as well. And she's saying that these also cover these areas where people eat and shop, whatever, do whatever. Now, remember, when he got that ticket on August 21st of 2022, August 21st, 2022, it was after 11 p.m. at night, and he was at the corner of Farm Road and whatever. It's right there by that Best Western Hotel. I think I showed it to you guys where I stayed that one night, or stayed that 1 week when I was there. And, that's where he was pulled over, and it's right by the mall, that Palouse Mall, the Winco, the grocery store that's there, stuff like that. So she's saying this was all, when she's saying all this stuff, this was about the probable cause affidavit. And this is back in January. They're trying to get all that stuff. She was trying to get the Franks hearing to get all the evidence thrown out, to say the cops lied, misrepresented stuff. They were reckless, et cetera. Well, this is why she cares so much. And it's all because of Nick Ballance, the FBI agent who did the cell phone stuff. So I'm going to share my screen and show this to you. Nick Ballance is giving Ann Taylor heartburn. Let me take this down. Okay. So in this document, this is where Ann Taylor goes through all of the stuff, all of the experts, where she says um, the people don't, or the experts aren't, either they have backed up their stuff and she's fine with what they're saying, or she hasn't been given what she feels like she should be getting, and she doesn't think it should be allowed. So she talks about who Nick Ballance is. Nick Ballance also testified in the Chad Daybell trial. So by extension, he probably testified in Lori Vallow's trial, I'm sure, too. And I call her Lori Vallow. She calls herself Lori Vallow Daybell. I'm still not convinced she ever legally, even though they got married, I don't think she legally changed her name. And she insists on being called Daybell. So she goes through who he is. Special Agent Ballance is an FBI agent specializing in cell site location information and a member of the Cellular Analysis and Survey Team. He worked alongside Moscow police detectives. He was co-located in Moscow. He assisted in search warrant applications and was communicating with the state and detectives at least as early as November 15th, 2022. So he helped also conduct interviews, etc. Initial disclosure stated he would testify about how cell towers work and interact with cell phones. His testimony would include what records related to personal cell phones are available and how they are used. S.A. Ballance will testify consistent with the historical cellular phone data provided to defendant in discovery. S.A. Ballance will explain the methodology used to create his report. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, let's skip ahead. She puts in bold, it is noteworthy that the state has never disclosed Special Agent Ballance's methodology used to create his report. He has never disclosed how his maps were created. Special Agent Ballance has omitted over 90% of the AT&T data during the relevant times he chose to map. There is no disclosure as to why this data was omitted. Special Agent Ballance will, and this is, she goes on to quote the disclosure. Special Agent Ballance will provide his opinion as to general locations in which the target cellular telephones were located at various times before and after the homicides at 1122 King Road and the cellular phone's direction of travel. So she's saying target telephones, plural. That's what she's saying the state is saying. So are we talking about the victim's cell phones as well? Because we're talking about more than one phone. That testimony will rely on information furnished by cellular phone providers concerning which cell towers the cellular telephones, plural, connected with during those times. S.A. Ballance may also testify regarding which cellular tower sectors were utilized for the relevant data and explain that the direction of the cellular tower sector utilized can indicate the general location of the cell phone relative to the tower utilized. Okay. She's saying the state has never produced an actual opinion by Ballance about the general location Mr. Kohberger's cellular telephone was at various times before and after the homicides at 1122 King Road and the cellular phone's direction of travel. So this was back in December, according to the December 2024 disclosure. Then she says they get a rebuttal disclosure in February. That's after this January hearing. The state responds to defense disclosures, but in doing so, it continues to refuse to provide expert analysis and opinion. The FBI Cellular Analysis Survey Team conducts drive testing using a Gladiator autonomous receiver developed by Gladiator Forensics. Okay, we can skip ahead. The disclosure does not state who produced the maps or how they were analyzed, and it lacks an opinion about the mapping program or its production. The state has not disclosed records that verify the mapping program, nor has it stated Ballance is an expert in mapping. S.A. Ballance went to great lengths to obtain raw drive test data in this case. She says that despite those efforts, he has only produced the mapping of the data for less than 5% of the relative cell sites in his work product. There have been no disclosures as to why he omitted 95% of the relative coverage maps. Okay. So I'm going to skip ahead. This she wants to know his review of reliability. The state doesn't disclose that. The state's creating wiggle room for him to testify to something undisclosed this time. This is what she's claiming. This particular area impacts 7 minutes of time. Her exculpatory information. This is the 7 minutes between 2:47 and 2:54. The state applied for search warrants in its arrest warrant, claiming Mr. Kohberger's phone stopped reporting to the network at 2:47, but they later conceded, based on its own disclosures, that the phone went off the network at 2:54. Between the time at 2:54 and 2:47 and 2:54, while the phone was on and receiving service, it was utilizing cell towers. The phone was not stationary and utilizing only one tower. The phone was moving during the 7 minutes. The state asserts Ballance mapped this data but hasn't produced it. The state must be required to disclose what it is not saying here. I don't know why she's not issue a subpoena for Ballance to come to the hearing. I don't know if that's allowed or not. That would be interesting. Like, I don't know why she's not making him get on the stand at this hearing. I think that would be something. The state must not be allowed to ambush Mr. Kohberger at trial by stating something that is not grounded in record. Okay, I'm going to skip ahead. So there was a supplemental disclosure on March 3rd. So Ballance is going to testify, and this just came to her on March 3rd, that at 2:47 a.m. the phone was not at Kohberger's residence marked BK on the map. It was southeast of his residence. They did a drive test to put this together. He's also expected to testify that he analyzed additional handoff data that occurred during this data session, and it stopped communicating with the network at 2:54. And it's interesting, she got this on March 3rd. At that hearing, when she was saying all this stuff, I saw Bill Thompson taking notes. So I thought that was interesting. And that was at a January hearing. He's like writing down notes as she's talking. The state has not disclosed an analysis where Special Agent Ballance will claim the phone was located. These are the 7 critical minutes that contain exculpatory evidence. So then she gets into, and I want to see what you guys are commenting. Mandy Strong says, I always leave my location data turned on for safety reasons, so my family always knows where I am. I am not a criminal, so I like my children knowing my location. That's understandable. Let's see. CH, Anne has been asking for this data since the beginning. It's understandable that the defense is frustrated in trying to avoid a trial by ambush. I would agree. They've been asking for this for a long time. Let's see. I'm just looking through your comments to see what you're saying. Okay. Let's go back to this. So this is, Ann Taylor's really upset about this. She talks about page 28 of this whole thing, and it includes King Road, represented by the CS icon, meaning crime scene. And Ballance will explain that he conducted analysis of all the cell sites in the area that provided coverage to the crime scene and identified any cell sites that drive test data showed coverage that included this 100-meter radius around the crime scene. That's like a little more than a football field around the crime scene. The state has not disclosed this analysis, so she's upset about that. Pages 29 and 30, the next 2 pages, represent any time the 8458 phone utilized the cell site identified as part of page 28 between the hours of 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. They're saying there are 23 separate instances between July 9th and November 7th, 2022. Ballance will testify that the 8458 phone, that's Kohberger's phone, used cell sites consistent with being at the crime scene during these dates and time. Ballance will further testify that the hours between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. were identified by the investigative team as times of interest. She's saying the state has not disclosed its analysis. Its February disclosure It was these times the state claimed was cumbersome and a waste of time to analyze. So I don't know. What do you guys think of that? What do you guys think of that? She's basically saying they have said all this stuff and here's the PowerPoint, but not given her the rationale for how they did this. And remember, guys, like and subscribe, please. Give me a thumbs up. I appreciate it. And I appreciate everybody watching. And if you're watching on replay, I also thank you very much because I really appreciate it when people come back who can't watch live and then they come back and watch and give me some comments and feedback, and always let me know what you're thinking and what other cases you'd like to talk about. I really want to know what you guys think about all this stuff, about the her claiming that they're saying he was within 100 meters of the house 23 times between July and November 7th. That's 6 days before the homicides. Like, how long are they going to say he was hanging out there? And where was he? Was he circling? Was he parked? Like, what is the state going to claim? Because without those timing advance records that are like really precise, they just have those call detail records. So I'm wondering what you guys think about that. I'm looking at your questions. Vanessa says, can we talk about the new prosecutor? Yeah, we can talk about that. I'll put his picture up because I have it loaded here. Vanessa said, can we talk about the new prosecutor that looks like Mark Zuckerberg? Yeah. So if you guys have questions about and opinions about this whole cell phone stuff and the claim that he was within 100 meters of the house, within a little more than a football field of the house on 23 occasions between July, which I don't even know if the victims and the roommates were in the house in July. I thought they had moved out for the summer, but I'm not 100% sure on that, but I didn't think they were living there in July. If he's there by that house in July, why is he there? If that's true. You know, Forensic Frenzy says, and she actually interviewed Andrew Garrett, who I feel like I should ask to come on here and talk to me about this. But she interviewed him a while ago, and he was a cell phone expert who said he was contacted by Ann Taylor and to work and work for the defense. He did a little bit of stuff early on his own, but he was too expensive for the defense to hire. She said, but Mr. Andrew Garrett did tell me that the cell phone evidence was in shambles when he saw it in January of 2023. Super interesting. Super interesting. So Forensic Frenzy is saying that when she talked to Andrew Garrett, he told her the cell phone evidence was in shambles when he saw it in January 2023. I almost feel like you should come on here and tell us what he said. Like exactly what he said. And how he would have seen that. It's like, so did they give Ann Taylor in January of 2023 whatever they had as far as the cell phone evidence went? Like, that's what I'm wondering. All right. So let's, if you guys move on and have other questions. I'm going to stop that screen share. Okay. Deanna says he wasn't, let me show this. Deanna says he wasn't within 100 meters of the house that many times. He was using this same cell tower that serves an area of 100 meters radius of the house. Yeah, that's what somebody else said to me, but that's not how I read what I'm going to put that back up. That's not how I read what she said. I'm going to show this to you guys. This is what it says. She talks about the cell towers. I read it like 4 times because somebody else said that too. If you look at it, it says Ballance will explain that he conducted analysis of all of the cell sites in the area that provide coverage to the crime scene and identified any cell sites that drive test data showed coverage that included this 100 meter radius around the crime scene. So they're talking about a 100 meter radius around the crime scene. And then down here it says Ballance will testify that the 854 or 8458 phone used cell sites consistent with being at the crime scene during these dates and times. So that's how I read it, as there's a 100 meter radius, a circle, 328 foot circle around the crime scene. You could draw it, and he's in that circle. So that, and she says consistent with being at the crime scene. So that's how I read it. And this was something that she just got in the last month. All right, guys, let's get on to this one. So this is the new prosecutor who's joined the team. His name is Joshua Hurwitz. And he, until January of this year, was the U.S. attorney for the District of Idaho. So he's a former U.S. attorney. He was appointed by Joe Biden. Obviously, when President Trump took office, all the U.S. attorneys, I think he fired them all, if I recall correctly. But they usually all quit anyway if they don't get fired, because the new president, they always appoint their own people. So he is now on the prosecution team, and it's really interesting to me, the timing of this. I'm like, this guy's all of a sudden on the prosecution team, and they had, they were trying to get somebody else from the AG's office, and I'm like, well, maybe somebody else from the AG's office couldn't come on. Maybe they didn't have the staff. They have this one young woman, and I don't know how young she is, but she looks young to me. She literally looks like she could be Maddie or Kaylee's older sister. It's really interesting. But she is handling part of jury selection and handling a motion about what they call the magic question. And that is that whole, and all this stuff is sealed, but the whole, asking a juror, can you be fair and impartial? I think it's so absurd. Like, during jury selection, nobody is going to be like, I don't know how many times I've seen, I think it's pretty rare when you see somebody, there are people who will say, yeah, I just don't think I can be fair. Like, I already have my mind made up. But if you really put somebody on the spot, they're going to be like, well, yeah, I can be fair. Like, because they don't want to admit that they can't. So this is him, and he has filed his first kind of document in the case, if you will. And he's basically said that the defense, that their expert disclosures are not complete. They haven't supplied all of the information that they should. Graciela Graci G says the Pope is still holding the books. Love it. Yeah, the Pope is still back there holding the books. He's definitely, he's back there, just standing there. I'm going to work on kind of making this a little better behind me. I just have to kind of figure out how to do that. So what do you guys think of this? What does everybody think of the timing of this new guy coming on board? I don't know. It's interesting. I mean, trial is still months away, months away. And he's talking about like these experts. So he's going to probably handle that part of this, like the psychological stuff, the neuropsych stuff. So maybe he'll deal with those motions. Dead in the Water says it's a fine backup. I think it needs some sprucing up. I'm not. I don't love the books. Yeah, the Pope will stay. We just need a little more. I think we need some better props back there and stuff. Oh, well, I mean, sorry, the chat lost their minds. It is what it is. I mean, it happened. I'm sorry, guys. So what do you guys think of this guy coming in? He's going to be handling all the neuropsych stuff. So Mandy says, I wonder if he knows more coming from a federal level. I don't know. I wonder, I mean, maybe he was the U.S. attorney. So he wasn't in court in the trenches trying the cases, but he's probably maybe done that before. In the past. But as the U.S. attorney, he's more of like a politician, if you will, a political appointee. I'm going through your comments to see what I've missed. Mother of Cycle Breakers says, with interest in cloud-based forensics, I'm curious if BK was aware that the AT&T short retention window versus other carriers, is it a coincidence he switched from Verizon around the same time he bought the knife? I don't know. And I just know that he got the new phone, I thought, in June. He bought, the knife was purchased in March, and they're still the defense is still kind of disputing that he even bought the thing, even though apparently there was a footnote in one of the motions that said something to the effect of, just because it might have been bought with his credit card and sent to his address with his name doesn't mean like he bought it or something like that. And I might be misquoting it, but that was the gist. So this is the new Mark Zuckerberg prosecutor. What do you guys think of that? So this is interesting. Sherry Rhodes says the judge has even reprimanded them at times, and if they want a clean conviction, they better have their T's crossed. That's interesting. CH says, was it a new phone or a new number because he moved to Washington? Oh, good question. That's a good question. That's a good question. I don't know if it was a new phone or not. Somebody said he switched from Verizon, so I don't know. Mandy says, just throwing it out there, when they say Target phones, do you think they're talking about burner phones purchased from Target? No, I think they're talking about Target. I think because they said it was a small T. So I think they're saying Target phones are like the phones that they looked at. That's what they're discussing. Mandy Strong says, he's easy on the eyes, so he gets a thumbs up from me. That's hilarious. Stacy Ann says he's good looking. Okay. So, yeah, so there you go. Mandy Strong says maybe he was Keith Morrison's source for that spot on Accurate Dateline episode. I don't know about, I don't know. I'm not sure about that, but Sherry Rhodes says the prosecution has had moments where they seem to struggle. I would agree with that. In court, I think there have been some, during that January hearing, I thought there were some moments that were very, I thought there were some arguments that could have been handled. I think there were some motions that could have been argued with more strength and confidence. So I don't know if I believe that Ashley Jennings has the best presentation skills when it comes to arguing a motion. in January, maybe it was just an off day for her. CH says, isn't Nye from the AG? Yes, he is. Yes, he is. So there you go. That's the new guy. Oh, Forensic Frenzy said she'd love to come on here and talk about this. Do you want to come on right now and talk about what Andrew Garrett said about the cell phone evidence? I'll send you a link really quickly, and you can pop on and see what he had to talk about what Andrew Garrett had to say. So let's talk about this text message stuff really quickly. The defense has also filed this other document about the text messages between DM and BF, the surviving roommates. And, that's one of the things I really wanted to talk about tonight. And they do not want those coming in under the hearsay exceptions to the hearsay rule. And they filed a declaration from this guy. It's pretty interesting. I'm going to pull that up. And let's see. The defense has an expert. I think his name is Roloff. And he's essentially saying that DM, she's the roommate who saw the guy with the bushy eyebrows walking through the house. The defense says DM was hammered, so they don't trust that she saw any guy with bushy eyebrows walking through the house. They don't seem to trust that she saw much of anything. So this guy, this expert for the defense, they filed this declaration. Josiah Roloff is his name. And he goes through all of his credentials. And he is saying that he has reviewed the documents entitled DM 1113 bubble format and BM 1113 bubble format. This contains data extracted from the mobile devices used by individuals identified as DM and BM. Now, this could be a typo. I don't think it is. DM is the roommate, the surviving roommate, Dylan. BM is her father. And unless this is a typo, and I don't think it is because it's in there twice. I don't think it is. It could be a typo. I don't think it is. Because we know that DM talked to her dad that morning before the 911 call at 11:56 a.m. It says but this guy is saying, I've reviewed these documents titled DM 1113 bubble format and BM 1113 bubble format, and it contains this data. These documents reflect periods of activity on the mobile devices that would require user interaction with the device for them to occur, specifically for the date November 13th, 2022. And it says the documents include artifacts and content demonstrating a variety of user interactions, including incoming and outgoing native text messages, incoming and outgoing Snapchat message artifacts indicated by the application identifier com.toyapagroup.peekaboo. That's just some web thing, meaning Snapchat. Voice and video calls conducted via Snapchat and the native phone dialer. Creation, modification, and deletion of multimedia files, such as images and videos. Application usage logs showing when specific apps were opened and closed. And then internet browsing artifacts and cookie data showing access to particular websites, or internet-based services. So they're saying they've got all this data from, and this guy has seen all of this, possibly deleting, creating, modifying, deleting files and images, Snapchat stuff from DM and BM. BM's her dad, unless that's a typo and it's supposed to be BF. I don't know. So, oh, okay. Thank you, Webby. I appreciate it. Okay, we can set it up for another day. So yeah, that would be great, because she talked to Andrew Garrett, this expert. So let's look at this. The defense was like, the state wants all this stuff to come in. The defense was all hot and bothered about it. And they were saying that the state did not give a full picture to the judge of what was going on with the roommates and their phones that morning. And in fact, they said basically that Maddie called BF at 2:53, that at 3:51, DM created a new contact in her phone. And then you've got the at 4:19 a.m., BF actually initiates a call to Dylan, before there's this text messaging back and forth. And then DM calls Xana. She, of course, doesn't answer. DM calls Kaylee. She doesn't answer. Then at 4:20, DM calls BF for 41 seconds. So then you have this whole exchange from 4:22. No one's answering. I'm really confused. Yeah, that's interesting. Prime example of why the judge advised the prosecution to start over disclosing. It's super interesting to me that you would say this and bring this up. This is a death penalty case. It's a quadruple homicide. You are seeking the death penalty. I am sorry. Open discovery. Just give it all over. Why are you holding stuff back? Like, oh, well, we don't have to disclose it because of X, Y, and Z. You are seeking the death penalty. This is a quadruple homicide. Open discovery. Hand it over. Like, they shouldn't be fighting to see this stuff. I mean, it's a capital case. I've covered a lot of capital cases. I've covered a lot of murder cases over the years. Hand it over. Quit holding it back. It's the right thing to do. Do you want, let's say you get your conviction. Do you want to redo this? Do you want to redo this because you didn't hand over some paper that the defense could have found useful? Like, just quit it. Hand it over. That's what I say. So Van Kroll says, I think it's a disgrace how long it has taken to bring this to trial. Well, I don't know if I agree with that, because I can see why you would feel like that, but it's a capital case with a lot of evidence. And so these cases can take a really long time to prepare. So, I guess Kohberger could have said, put up or shut up, and gone for his speedy trial and maybe gotten lucky. But his defense probably wouldn't have felt prepared. So, and the state might have been more prepared than the defense was at that point. Okay. Let's see. Elizabeth. Oh, excuse me. Conspiracy channels are trying to incriminate Dylan's dad. It never ends. I don't think there's anything incriminating. I don't know what this means. Like, nobody knows what this means. Nobody knows what this means. You've got some guy filing a declaration. Nobody knows what any of this stuff from this guy means. Okay. The deletion of photos and videos from a Snapchat or whatever. Well, we've seen from the Murdoch trial, you can get that stuff back. But I don't. So anyway, guys, let's look through this a little more. So the defense is saying, look, the state did not lay this out. They put all this stuff in here to look, excited utterance, present sense impression, but there was all this other stuff going on. 8:41 a.m. to 8:42 a.m. BF takes photos. 8:09 a.m. Dad calls BF. BF had called her mom at 8:02. Who knows what was going on there with these calls? Maybe she was saying, "Hey, we think there was somebody in our house last night." Who knows? 10 o'clock to 10:01 DM messages. There's an incoming and an outgoing message on Snapchat. 10:01 to 10:03 DMs on Instagram. 10:03 to 10:04 DM is on Indeed. That's like some job website. 10:04 to 10:23 DM messages incoming and outgoing. So who is she messaging? We don't know. 10:23 there's a DM texts So was she from 04 to 23? Was she texting the roommates? I don't know. 10:24 to 10:25 DM is on Instagram. 10:30 to 10:45 DM messages. There are incoming and outgoing messages on Snapchat. I don't know why they're not issuing a subpoena or a warrant to Snapchat. I don't know what the retention period is there. 11:21 JM texts BF, and then 10:56 to 11:29. That's 33 minutes or so. DM is on Instagram and messages on Snapchat. At 11:29, DM texts KG. 11:29 to 11:32, DMs on Instagram and messaging on Snapchat. 11:35, DMs on Yik Yak, and then she's on TikTok, and then she's DM messages on Snapchat. So there's a lot of Snapchatting. And then 11:39 to 11:40, DM and her dad text. BF calls JM at 11:49. JM texts DM at 11:50. Then she's back on Instagram. Let's go to the next page. Oh, sorry, that's out of order, guys. My bad. I might have these out of order. Oh, here we go. So then 11:51, there's some more text between BF and JM. JM texts BF. There's back and forth. But there was a lot of Snapchatting and Instagramming and yik yakking and Indeeding and all this stuff. So BM is her dad, I guess, and they want to see what was going on there. So, and we don't know. So what do you guys think of all of that? We can't say, we can't say, and I'm not going to sit here and judge anybody. I was 19 once or whatever, but Jeremy Boudreau says, why don't they tell us the Snapchat messages? By keeping it a secret, it just allows channels to continue with the conspiracy theories. That's a really good question, because they could subpoena, and we don't know that they haven't, or they could issue a warrant or a subpoena to Snapchat, and maybe the defense has, maybe the state has, we don't know. So we don't know, but it would be nice to know what all of that was. Because I feel like if you're going to be presenting a case like this, the jurors may be asking those questions too. And as a prosecutor, you're going to want to answer those questions. You need to kind of close those loops, kind of like the blood. The unknown male DNA, whether you think it's relevant or not, the blood in the house or whatever, even if you don't think it's relevant, they should have still done everything they could to ID it. And Taylor said in those documents too that she finally got some explanation for that after all of this time, but she didn't say what it was. I've never heard of Yik Yak before. I've heard of it. I just don't know what it is. Kelly says, I think it's strange BF's parents seemingly didn't urge her to call for help. More hours pass before they make an emergency call. Well, we don't know. We don't know what was said. We really don't. We don't know what happened or what was said. Sherry Rhodes says, yes, they still should tested that to rule it out as relevant. They still could, truth be told. I mean, it makes me think back to, I mean, they still, I don't know why they don't, honestly. They still could. Makes me think back to this case I covered a long time ago where they went and did some testing at the last minute and still presented it at trial. Cat Q says, maybe that's an, oh, sorry. I missed the first part of this. I just think in a capital case, I think in a capital case where, you know, that house was a petri dish. It was a party house. There's going to be DNA all over that place. I think in a capital case too, you know, you should be answering all the questions that you can and closing all of the loops. I mean, just because you think you have your guy, I mean, there's still reasonable doubt. And as a prosecutor, you still have an obligation. Let's look up Yik Yak. Yik Yak. I've heard of it. I just don't really know what it is. Oh, okay. So guys, here's Yik Yak. This is very exciting. Can you guys, this is what we're doing. This is what we're talking about all of a sudden. This is a college, like connect with people at your college app. So here's what it looks like. And it literally is what it sounds like. Find your herd on Yik Yak. Anonymously connect with everyone at your college. Wouldn't it be cool if you could connect with the most important people in your world, the people around you on Yik Yak? Anonymously connect with everyone at your college. So Yik Yak is some connecting with people at your college. So let's say, I think it was DM that was up on Yik Yak. Maybe, who knows? Let's pull that back up really quickly. Let's go to the Yik Yak page. Okay. So 11:35 DMs on Yik Yak. From 11:29 to 11:32, she's on Instagram and messaging on Snapchat. From 10:56 to 11:29, she's on Instagram and messages on Snapchat. So then she's on Yik Yak and on TikTok. Is it possible that she is reaching out to the roommates on these various social media platforms, trying to rouse her roommates and saying, hey, what's going on? Or, hey, where are you? And she and BF are down in the first floor bedroom, and they're down on the first floor because they haven't gone back up to the second floor because they're kind of like weirded out by whatever happened upstairs, seeing the guy in black the night before. And they're like, okay, where are you guys? What's going on? Why aren't you answering? Wake up. It's 11 a.m. Blah, blah, blah. I mean, we don't know. We don't know. We don't know what was going on Snapchat and Yik Yak and Instagram. I'm theorizing. Is this possible? Texas Salty says, okay, so we aren't that uncool then. How could we know about it since we are just a teeny weeny older than the college age? Right. So we didn't know about Yik Yak because, you know, we're just like, you know, like we're like 20, 29. So how would we know? But anyway, so yeah, so that's kind of. Stacey Ann says, why wouldn't DM just knock on the door? I don't know. I mean, she saw some guy in all black and was weirded out the night before. So who knows? Who knows? And she said, I mean, she was hammered. I mean, we read that footnote on Sunday about I think the 12 White Claws and the champagne and whatever else it said that she had the night before. So she said she didn't know if it was real or a dream. So who knows? Van Krool says she saw bushy eyebrows balaclava man. Right. Correct. That's what she said. Squeaky Wheel says, isn't it so strange that the two roommates were spooked and hiding? What's so strange about it is that they stayed hidden for 8 hours. It's a damn long time to cower in fear while texting. I'm sure that will come up at the trial. I'm going up. Hella excited utterance. I've seen you on Twitter. The most important thing about DM is her non-identification of Bryan Kohberger. When shown a photo of him, she said she had no idea if that was him. Done. ID gone. Yeah, I mean, that's why I don't know why the defense is making such a big deal out of all of this. They're upset about the bushy eyebrows. I mean, she couldn't ID him. There is no ID. There's a description that could be him. Basketball player type skinny, athletic build, 6 feet tall. That pretty much nailed it according to his Washington driver's license, if it's indeed him. So there's no positive identification here. She looked at his photo after the arrest and she told the cops she could not identify him. There is no identification, but the defense is acting like the bushy eyebrows is an identification. So Squeaky Wheel says, I think this appears to be so odd because the average person, if they heard a bunch of strange noises, saw an intruder, or simply got spooked, there's no way they would hide for 8 hours in a room. I'm sure they will be questioned about that at trial by the defense. But the prosecution should be asking them about it first, honestly. Oh, Graciela, I hope you feel better. Okay, so Forensic Frenzy, there must be some conversation in here that I'm missing. That's not true. The defendant has to initiate an appeal in a non-DP case. It happens automatically in a DP case. That is true. Death penalty cases are automatically appealed. This case is probably in the millions already, and it hasn't even started. I would say it probably is. I think it's a crying shame. I will tell you this, with this whole non-disclosure order thing, that they're hiding how much this has cost the taxpayers so far. I think that's super, super lame. The taxpayers should know how much this is costing. The Pike County case, are you guys familiar with the Pike County massacre case here in Ohio? Huge case. 8 people murdered in one night, 4 defendants, 4 capital cases. Those took years. Some way longer. It took way longer than they should have to be resolved. One is still not resolved, and it's almost, good God. Wow. April 21st, 22nd will be the 9-year anniversary of these homicides. A horrific, horrific case out of Pike County, Ohio. But we knew how much that was costing. Like, I could call and get a spreadsheet from, I believe, the Attorney General's office or even the clerk's office and find out, even with a gag order in that case, I could find out how much this was costing. Like, the secrecy in this case has been absurd. So, and that case was in the millions, still in millions with an S. So, Squeaky Wheel says his face and head were 70% covered with a balaclava hood. It makes total sense that DM was unable to identify a photo of him. She barely saw any of his face except for nose, eyebrows, and eyes. Right. I mean, there's no, I agree 100%. You can't identify somebody, when they're walking through your house with what you're saying is a ski type mask on. It's insane. I mean, you guys, I have the balaclava right here. I got it at Dick's. I mean, this is it. I mean, look at that. I mean, I don't know if this is the exact brand that they're discussing, but it's similar enough. They're all pretty similar. I mean, she described all black pants, shirt, and boots, plus a weird, what she called a ski mask type thing. So here it is. So, I mean, how could you identify somebody like that? I mean, she's saying a bushy eyebrow or a bushy eyebrows. So, Elizabeth Casey says maybe during trial, Dylan will have an oh my God, OMG moment when she sees those eyebrows again. Well, she already has. She looked at a picture. She's looked at the picture many times, it sounds like, and she's never been able to. I mean, what are you going to do? Have a lineup of eyebrows? I mean, you can't do that. Yeah, I have the balaclava. It's not the balaclava, but I got it from Dick's. So I don't know if it's the one. I thought at first it was Under Armour the first time I read the documents, but this is a Dick's Sporting Goods balaclava. So I just think if you're gonna, you got to kind of if you're gonna go into the weeds, you got to go all the way. So Von Krull says, what she did see is incriminating for him, though. Instead of describing someone who couldn't be Bryan, she described somebody consistent with Bryan insofar as she saw. I mean, she did describe somebody who could be him, but she also described somebody who could probably be a lot of people on that campus. Now, the prosecution's going to say that's enough, coupled with the DNA on the knife sheath and the white car and their cell phone stuff. And then all the other stuff. Guys, let's get into the other stuff. What do you guys think about all the neuropsychological stuff? Yeah, this is what I was talking about. Taylor Piper says, about the motor skill disorder he has, common with ASD, not to be able to tie shoes or tie, but they can usually type very fast, build complex Lego, and master things that are hyper interested in. Yeah, it's so funny that you say that. It also sounds a little bit like ADHD too. And so there are some I've done a lot of reading about this, not because of this case, but for other reasons. But there are a lot of like similarities between ADHD and autism. Like there are some similar characteristics, if you will. So let's get into this. So I think this, Kimberly Jones says, put it on again, Anjanette. Not tonight, Kimberly. Well, maybe another time. I don't think I can do it again tonight. Forensic Frenzy just said something. Oh gosh, now I lost the comment. It was so funny. She just said something that like the DM said about how he said, how DM said something like she wasn't even sure if he had eyes. I mean, that sounds like something out of a horror movie, but yeah, because she couldn't see. Okay, guys, let's get into this neuropsych stuff. I tried to get somebody to come on with me tonight. Sorry, I had to take a sip. Somebody was upset I did that last time, but I'm still getting over my cold. And I drink a lot of water. I get really thirsty. So sorry about that, guys, if you're offended. Yeah, the docket and all you people from the docket. And when I say you people, I mean docketeers. Thank you for coming over. I appreciate it. And I hope you're enjoying yourselves. All right, so let's get into this. I don't think Judge Hippler, and there's a lot to talk about here, so I might do this again on Sunday if you guys are up for it, because that hearing is coming on Sunday. But I don't think Judge Hippler is having any of the autism spectrum disorder stuff. They said that I took a big gulp of water, so I was like, sorry. I drink a lot of water. So oh, I might work one in. I haven't done the I didn't do the mask demo tonight. And there was no baklava. But I did have the balaclava. Here it is, but the sheath has not made an appearance yet. But we are talking about now the neuropsychological stuff. So I do not think that Judge Dry Sass is having anything to do with this autism stuff, but we're not going to talk specifically about autism tonight. We're going to talk about all three: autism, OCD, and the other thing that we forgot what it was called, the other disorder thing. The one with the motor skills. So let's go through this. But I don't think the judge is having anything to do. He wants no part of this. So Philip Dubé and I had talked about this when we first started talking about the autism stuff. And he said that Judge Hippler needed to have what's called an Atkins hearing to determine whether or not, even though Bryan Kohberger's got an IQ of 119, and he's got this level 1 autism spectrum disorder, which is like the highest functioning form of it. He said he should have a hearing under Atkins to determine whether or not he's disabled or has this disability. And he said he should have the hearing. And usually that means like you have an IQ of under 70 or below, that type of thing. And it comes from a US Supreme Court case. Judge Hippler has told the defense, we're not doing that. And you can have 15 minutes to argue this motion. 15 minutes. Alyssa Massif is furious. She's really not happy about it. And she said, we need an evidentiary hearing, a full-blown hearing. And she said that we are going to continue to take this all the way through trial. I mean, she is like, when I was reading this stuff, I was like, oh my God, I can feel how mad they are, like when I'm reading it. So they're talking about all this stuff that he has. And they start with the autism spectrum disorder. I don't think that Nancy Grace would. I'll invite her, I guess, but I'm not sure she would come on here. Okay, so that was funny though. Oh, that's very sweet, Kimberly, that you want me to drink whatever I want. I appreciate that. I drink a ton of water, you guys, all day long. So let's get over to this real quick. And we can do this again on Sunday if you want, because there's just so much to talk about with this case. I mean, there's so much. Every time I get on here, I'm like, there's so much I want to tell them about. And then I start talking about it. And I'm like, I need to get. I didn't even get to that. I didn't get to this. I didn't get to that. I mean, there's so much. And you guys are always such good sports. Oh, let me take this down. It's going to block my document. Okay. So this is the defendant's response to the state's motion in limine. The state's like, we don't want you presenting any of this stuff. That you're not coming into court during trial and telling everybody that he has all these neuropsychological issues. Judge Hippler, tell them they can't do this. Well, the defense is fired up and they want it coming in. So Alyssa Masseth writes, the minute that jury selection begins, the jurors are going to begin to study and analyze Mr. Kohberger's physical presence. They will watch his every move and pass judgment on him every minute of the jury trial simply based on how he looks and reacts to the presentation of certain evidence and comments about him. He must be able to present testimony to the jury that he has certain physical disorders. It will assist the trier of fact to know his physical presentation, including nonverbal reactions in the courtroom, is explained by his physical condition. I'm sorry, but every time I watch him in court, I feel like he's like a statue, and he's like I watch him as best I can on the Zoom, and he'll be like this. I mean, that's like about all he does. Like I don't see much, so they must be seeing something that I'm not seeing. Mr. Kohberger in no way suggests the expert testimony related to his autism, his obsessive compulsive disorder, his developmental coordination disorder are for the purpose of showing that he does not know right from wrong. So they're saying, look, we're not doing like insanity stuff here. Idaho doesn't even have the insanity defense. This is not why we want to present this. Don't misunderstand us. The state correctly noted in its motion, Mr. Kohberger's disclosures state that Dr. Orr's testimony and Dr. Ryan's testimony is not intended to be a mental element defense, but rather this testimony about state of mind as well as factual defense testimony to anticipated testimony elicited by the state. Okay, let's go and scroll ahead. So let's get down to autism. The anticipated testimony of Dr. Orr and Dr. Ryan is relevant to explain that Mr. Kohberger's ASD diagnosis is a physical condition and how it presents in his demeanor. Mr. Kohberger has met the criteria for this diagnosis since childhood, and that it is not a convenient diagnosis given his current legal situation and jeopardy. The anticipated testimony of Dr. Orr and Dr. Ryan is relevant to explaining how the behaviors and mannerisms presented by Mr. Kohberger are consistent with an individual having ASD. In addition to the opinions of Dr. Orr and Dr. Ryan, the declaration of Dr. Lewin, or Lewine, whatever his name is, explains that neuroimaging of Mr. Kohberger's brain supports the ASD diagnosis. So they scanned his brain. They scanned his brain. And they said there's some like structural, they say it down here, there's some like structural stuff in his brain that shows he has autism. It's a physical disorder, they're saying. I'm going to scroll ahead to, we don't need to read like all this stuff. I read it, so you don't have to. But they're talking about physical defects in the tissues of the brain. You can't see this when you look at a person because it's in their brain. But you can see it with the proper microscopic examination, blah, blah, blah. So they did an MRI. Research on large groups of persons with ASD has indicated the presence of structural differences in the brain. And I have a lot to tell you about some other expert disclosures from the defense too. I just haven't gotten there. We may not get to it tonight. Now we're talking about the OCD. Okay. While Mr. Kohberger's presentation is highly consistent with ASD, without explanation, others may misinterpret and misidentify Mr. Kohberger's behaviors and cast them in a more sinister light. For example, he does not show emotion on his face. He has a flat affect. He sits very still and holds his hands in the same position. He has a piercing stare. He does not show expected reactions. Facial expressions do not reflect what he is feeling. He is stiff in body posture. He has a prosody in speech, uses repetitive phrases and large words, and has developed dexterity problems. Many of his behavioral characteristics are known to be commonly associated with the presence of ASD. So, prosody of speech, uses big words. I think that we should look at what we have. And we've seen Bryan Kohberger talk. Do you guys remember this? I think we should look at what we have of Bryan Kohberger speaking. And I obviously we don't know how Bryan Kohberger speaks when he actually talks to people, like sitting in some type of setting or whatever. But let's take a look at Bryan Kohberger speaking. Here we go.
Hello, I am Officer Loangus. Stops being audio and video recorded. I think you know why I stopped you. You ran the red light.
What actually happened was I was stuck in the middle of the intersection.
Yeah,
so
I was behind you the whole time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So technically, you're not supposed to enter the intersection at all for that reason, because if the light turns red, then you're stuck in the intersection, and then you run the red light. So that's the reason I stopped you. Do you have your license on you?
Yep.
Do you have the registration and insurance?
Let me just get this for you out.
You what?
I'm just gonna get this out for you.
Okay.
So would you explain that to me a little bit further? So in Pennsylvania, when you're stuck like in the intersection, you have to make the left. So what would the appropriate thing for me to have done? Just
You're
back up
not
in that
supposed to
situation?
block an intersection like that in Washington. So just by you blocking the intersection, that's technically a ticketable violation. And then then you're running a red light. So it's another ticketable offense. So you're not supposed to proceed into the intersection until you can go. Because a lot of people do what you just did, right? Is like you're sitting in the intersection waiting and then turns and then you're blocking. So
Yeah, there was a little bit of confusion with speeding because someone had stopped. I wasn't sure what they were doing, and then they put on their light to turn.
Mhm.
So I thought that maybe they were letting me go through.
Oh,
Did you see that?
no. Mm-mm.
Yeah, like right before I made the turn, there was someone who made a right. They didn't have their signal on, so I wasn't sure if they were just waiting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I would just advise just don't enter the intersection until you can go, so you don't get stuck. Let's see.
But in that situation, the best thing to do then would be back on and not.
I don't know if there's a best thing to do in that situation, because you're either going to back up into somebody or you're going to run a red light. So, or you're going to be sitting in an intersection.
Yeah.
There's not really a great option there.
Yeah, I was just slightly into the crosswalk, so where I'm from Pennsylvania, we actually don't have like crosswalks.
Oh,
so even if you're kind of slightly, there's a little bit more leeway as well. Like there are a few lines, like there's one white line and there's another one in front. Like there's like a certain margin from which you can actually kind of put your vehicle, place your vehicle.
Yeah. So I know laws vary state to state, but there is a law in Washington for blocking an intersection like that, proceeding through when you don't, when you're just stalling. I forget the actual verbiage. I can find it for you, but it's like stalling, blocking an intersection.
Yeah. I'm just curious about the law. I don't mean to.
Oh no, yeah, I can find it for you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
1 second. That looks good on a Hyundai. I don't see Pennsylvania registration like at all. Okay, let's see. Expires November 22nd or 2022. Okay. And
one of those is actually.
yeah, okay, that looks good. I'll hand that back to you. I'm just gonna go check your info. I'll try to find that RCW, the law for you, and I'll be right back.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, guys. So I don't see anything there that makes me I don't see anything that makes me feel like he has trouble speaking or says anything really bad. I mean, if anything, I think he like tries to over explain and he talks too much. I mean, he should just like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize, but it sounds like he's trying to over explain and like control the situation a little bit from the beginning. Well, what actually happened? Yeah, you shouldn't do that with the cops. Just don't do that. Don't do that with the cops. They don't like it when you try to tell them what happened. So I don't see what they're seeing, but obviously they've dealt with him a lot and they've been with him. And part of the reason I think they're saying this, my opinion, I think Bryan Kohberger wants to testify. I think that he wants to get up there and this is my opinion. Nobody has told me this. I just think they keep saying he would make a poor witness. They've said this in many filings. I think he wants to testify. I mean, and I have no problem believing that he is on the high functioning end, the highest level of autism. He very well could be. I don't know. They said he was getting like special education services when he was younger as a child. For whatever reason, they haven't gone into great detail about that, the defense, but I mean, that's possible. He may have had some challenges when he was younger, but he was getting straight A's. He was a 4.0, I think, GPA at DeSales. So there you have it. Let's see. So she goes back. But I think the reason, I mean, he does have a bit of a stare, but
And get stopped for that alone, unless you can clearly just clear it right away.
Okay.
So
So then basically, I understand.
you're just supposed to wait behind the white line. Drivers do it all the time.
It
But
never even occurred to me that that was actually something wrong. But
yeah.
well, except for the fact that I was blocking the crosswalk, which is what
Yeah.
I went through.
And states vary a lot from laws. Like Pennsylvania might not even have that law, but in Washington we do.
I'm actually just from a very rural area,
Mm-hmm.
so we just don't have crosswalks.
Oh.
Unless I visit an area where there are
Gotcha.
crosswalks, and then it's not very frequent.
Yeah.
I do apologize if I was asking you too many questions about the law. I wasn't trying to like.
No, not at all. Like I understand you're not from here, so if you don't, a lot of people don't know a bunch of laws. Like I only know it because this is what I do. But yeah, if you're ever curious on any more laws, just RCW, and they can be hard to read because it's in like legal language. But hope that helps.
Definitely.
Yeah. Have a good day.
Definitely, you too.
Thanks.
okay, so there you have it. I just think he talks too much. That's probably, and maybe it's just how his brain works, and that's fine. Everybody's different. Remember, guys, again, thanks for watching. We're still continuing here. If you're watching on replay, thank you for watching on replay. I really appreciate it. And thank you for watching live. Like and subscribe, all that good stuff. Thumbs up. And so here we go. So let's move on to OCD. It can be an independent diagnosis. Am I sharing my screen? I'm not. Sorry, I forgot to hit the button. All right. So they're getting into like where he has sleep difficulties. He's developed a habit of night driving or running to decompress. We've seen his Strava health data. We only saw one run, but he runs a 6-minute mile. I mean, he's a pretty fit guy. I think the fastest mile I ever ran was 7 minutes and 30 seconds. And that might have been 7th or 8th grade or something. I can't even remember. That might, I mean, it may have not even been a 7 minute and 30-second mile. It may have been more like 8 minutes. So, so that's pretty fit. So that could be part of the OCD too. The whole running thing. Plus, he had that struggle, he was addicted to heroin. So, that could have helped him with that, taking up, the running. Such behaviors have been present most of his life. So he's had these sleep difficulties, developed a habit of night driving, running to decompress, pardon me. He also engages in frequent compulsive hand washing. He wears gloves to avoid germs, and he has a fear of things getting into his eyes. He changes his shower curtain frequently to avoid exposure to mold, and he avoids anything he views as contaminating. There was all this talk. There was all this talk that his shower curtain in Pullman was missing when the cops searched the apartment. A lot of people in the big selfie thought the shower curtain was missing. I don't think it's missing. I think I see it in the selfie. So they're saying he's got all these quirks. So they're explaining possibly him being in the house when the cops in Pennsylvania show up. He's wearing gloves at like 1 a.m, running around his parents' house in a hoodie and wearing gloves. I thought they were like dish gloves, but I could be wrong about that. I thought that's the way Jay Logston said kitchen gloves. I think kitchen gloves, and I think of like what your mom used to wear when you were a kid and she was doing the dishes. I actually have a pair. I was going to put them on. I forgot. Sorry, guys. They're red. So he engages in frequent compulsive hand washing. I mean, I do that. My hands are like always dry. He wears gloves to avoid germs. I just read that. If the state elicits testimony at trial related to these types of facts that are used to build circumstantially the elements of the crime or show Mr. Kohberger's actions as reflecting his state of mind or other elements of the crime, he will refute that evidence through expert testimony as behaviors related to his OCD and ASD. By way of example, the state has continued to claim that Mr. Kohberger was wearing gloves on the night of his arrest and placing his trash in baggies. The state asserts that this demonstrates he has had consciousness of guilt and was trying either to hide his DNA or engage in the cleaning of his car. This is highly prejudicial and misleading. Mr. Kohberger frequently wears gloves to avoid germs on surfaces. He was not cleaning his car on the night of his arrest. He was awake at night, as is typical for him, and he was cleaning his bathroom. While testimony related to these topics may not be relevant until the state opens the door by eliciting testimony on these issues, once it does, Mr. Kohberger must be allowed to provide expert testimony refuting the state's witnesses. So they're like looking to explain all of this stuff that the state says is incriminating and weird, and that people would only do if they're trying to hide evidence and trying to keep from their DNA being left somewhere where the cops could go collect it in the trash. So this is why this is coming up. They want to say, oh, no. This is what this guy does. He puts his trash in bags, in Ziploc bags all the time. He's always wearing gloves. So and maybe he is, but I'd like to know if his family ever witnessed him doing that before December of 2022. The wearing of the gloves, the bagging up his trash, the fastidious cleaning of the car, all of that stuff. Now we get to the developmental coordination disorder. He has deficits in his fine motor dexterity and visual motor function. Clearly, these are physical issues. He has experienced these physical impairments all of his life. Law enforcement, I find this really interesting. They're going to do a reenactment. I don't know how they're going to do that because you can't really recreate this. You can come up with a theory of how you think it went down, but they did a recreation and they did test runs at King Road to show that it's possible to commit 4 homicides in a time frame of only minutes, including walking to and from a car and removing clothing that would be covered in blood. So that's what they think happened. They think the state thinks and we had kind of heard this before, but they think that he went in there. He carried out these homicides. He came out, he took his clothes off, did whatever he did with the clothes, and then drove off. Additionally, the state has disclosed a forensic pathologist who will testify regarding manner of death, injuries, and specific wounds on the deceased. Mr. Kohberger has disclosed a forensic pathologist who has some differing opinions, including injury and specific wounds on the deceased. So they're saying it's going to be relevant for the jury to know that Kohberger has this developmental condition that impacts his fine motor dexterity and visual motor function. Such speed and coordination are not possible for him. I don't know how much speed and coordination you would need to use a really, really big knife, to stab for people who are heavily intoxicated, some who might be sleeping, and then leave. And again, he runs like a 6 minute and some odd 6 minute and change mile. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. So, I mean, when I interviewed Philip Dubé about this the other day, I mean, he and I talked about this. He said if they're gonna present evidence of this, then the defense has to be allowed to refute it. So he's probably right about that. But look, I mean, we've talked about this. Here's the sheath. Look how big that is. The knife, that is a big knife. So how much coordination do you need if somebody is asleep in a bed? I don't know. So I hate to like be graphic that way, but that is what happened. The state's like saying, no way, no dice. No way. That's what they're saying to this. They're saying this is not, they're saying no way. We're not doing this. Okay, I got to put this up on the screen. So anyway, I got it. Hold on. So anyway, I gotta do this. You just made me laugh. I'm so sorry. I'm looking to find your comment so I can put it up. And I'm not laughing about anything here. Truth and Transparency says, I'm supporting a Cincy OG media chick. Love that you repped us in Ohio. Okay. That's really funny. I might have mistook. Thank you for the contribution. Thanks. First of all, that's very sweet. Repped us in Ohio. Okay. Like, are you from Ohio? I'm just a little confused. So clarify for me, please, if you would. But anyway, I don't know how much speed you would need. The prosecution responded that, he had these dexterity issues when he was a kid. He had bad handwriting, couldn't tie his shoes. And also, his parents were reporting that he had trouble using tools, but that was like reported by the parents. And that he sometimes turned his body kind of funny in some ways. I did notice, though, as far as the handwriting goes, like the DeSales picture where he's like writing. Well, he's right-handed, actually. That he does, how like some people, I'm left-handed, and how some people who are left-handed, they kind of like write, like I think because they've been taught by right-handed people how to write. I don't write like that, but I noticed the way, let me pull this up so you guys can see it. He holds his pencil kind of funny, his pen. Look at me like, look at me making this like analysis of somebody, the way they hold their hand or their pen or whatever. And I only say this because I noticed this a lot, because when I was a kid, a lot of people did this who were left-handed, even though he's right-handed. He kind of like, do you guys see that? The way he holds, it just looks like and I know it's a still photo, but just the way he holds his pencil a little bit, it kind of reminds me of that, like some of the ways the left-handed people hold it, who would have trouble. So maybe he does have some issues, but that's a lot different. All right. It's just something I noticed. So the state says no dice, no way. This stuff shouldn't be allowed. So you said, I'm from Ohio. You worked for a news out. Yes, I did. In Cincy, I went to UC, live in C-Bus now. I'd love to chat Idaho 4 with you because you cover the docs the best out of all in the mainstream media. Oh, that's very sweet. Thank you so much. Okay, I did not know that you lived in Columbus. I've seen your channel around. That's hilarious. Yes, and you're right. I did work for a news outlet in Cincinnati. I did for like 10 years. And then before that, I worked there the first go around. Long story. So, well, thank you so much. That you're really sweet to chime in and contribute. 12 Cage Investigative says, bushy eyebrows got to stick together. Okay, I might have missed something, but I often say I know I have bushy eyebrows, and I've been meaning to pull up that really old picture of my bushy eyebrows. Like people say Luigi Mangione and Bryan Kohberger have bushy eyebrows. I could give them both a run for their money. Psychosaurus Rex. That's how I hold my pen. Looks normal to me. Okay, I'm not saying it's abnormal. I'm just saying, like, I guess maybe I do it differently. It just reminded me of sometimes like some of the kids who would have a little bit of issues with like the writing and stuff, like the way he's holding his. I don't know. Maybe it was just something I picked up on. Or maybe it's because I read what they said. Maybe it's because I read what the defense said about his handwriting. And then I saw the way he held his pen and I was like, oh, and I kind of read into it. Maybe it was that type of thing that happened. So maybe that's what it was. Let's see. C. Tyrus says, was going to call it, it's a right-handed world we live in. It is. Us, I'm a left-handed person. Dead in the Water says, I don't have bushy eyebrows. Oh, well, not now, but they were back in the day. Okay, sorry. I'm looking for some of your Mandy says, I like content creators who stick to the known facts and not conspiracies. I'll stick with the internet for following this case. Oh, you're very sweet. Thank you. I just try to go by what we know is true and connect dots and stuff like that. So, excuse me. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to get through a lot of your comments. But I am going to be winding it down here soon. I really appreciate everybody tuning in and hanging out with me on a Friday night. Official. I feel like I'm saying it wrong. I can do a 15-minute mile tops. Yeah. I don't know how fast I could run a mile these days. I really don't. Oh, I'm like really behind on your comments. Like I'm looking and looking. Okay. Cherie Rhodes says to Beautiful Messy Ball, being ADHD, OCD, and an insomniac since birth, plus have big, intense eyes, thank God I'm not being looked at for a crime or public opinion would have me convicted. Well, I mean, let's keep in mind like what led them there. Guys, what do you think? I want to know, and I feel like this is worth a whole nother kind of discussion, but I've been just based on reading the documents. What do you think the defense is? How are they going to explain this? I feel like that's worth a whole nother kind of segment. How are they going to explain this? Because their expert, Ann Taylor has basically made, reference to this is a movable object. How did it get there? Their expert says, they're not disputing it's his DNA. So I'd like to know how they're going to handle that. Official says, I used to run 6-minute miles back when I was in high school. I'm 6'3", 6'3". Wow. That's intense. That's really something. Mother of Cycle Breakers says, I'm worried AT is warming up to go the incompetency road to delay depending on how her motions go. Well, they have made reference to that. They have said they're constantly monitoring his competency, but the court would have Bryan Kohberger evaluated to determine competency. Their own experts are not going to determine whether he's competent or not. The court would have their own people do that. And then the state had said they might want their own evaluation as well. I'm going through all your comments because I feel like you guys have some good comments and I miss them. Psychosaurus Rex says, we've been socialized to wash hands a ridiculous amount ever since COVID. So that means nothing to me anymore. Haha. Yeah, I've always washed my hands a lot, even before COVID, but then after COVID or during COVID, oh my God, I was in the very beginning so scared. I remember I was washing my hands so often, and then I even did the gloves for a little bit. The gloves, and then I realized, covering COVID every day on the news, I was just like, unless you took the gloves off, like you did it like this, and like it was worthless. Like you had to take the gloves off a certain way in order to make it effective. So I stopped using the gloves. They said, just wash your hands. COVID's a whole nother ball of wax. Oh my gosh, I feel like I'm losing my voice. I'm still getting over my cold, so I'm almost there. So let's see. Everyone knows when you are driving, you must follow the laws in the state. Okay, you're talking about the so sorry guys. You're talking about the traffic stop video I showed. He wants to testify for his own ego is what Psychosaurus Rex says. I want him to testify so we can see him get completely rattled. Yeah, these are my opinion is that they're saying a lot of this stuff. I could be wrong, but I could see, Bryan Kohberger, I remember when I interviewed Jason LaBar in the very beginning, his Monroe County public defender in Pennsylvania, he said that Bryan Kohberger said, I'm eager to be exonerated. That's what he said. And so I think that, they keep making all this stuff about how he'd be such a poor witness. They keep saying that in these documents. I think he has told them he wants to testify. I don't know. And a lot of other people have said to me, like, I bet he's doing this, controlling this. He's saying this behind the scenes. He can say whatever he wants. The lawyers are the lawyers. They are doing their job and they are the ones paid to write these motions. They are doing what they're supposed to be doing. And I feel like they're doing a really good job. They're representing their client and they're doing it very aggressively. So, I mean, they keep saying this stuff about what a poor witness he would be. It makes me think that he's said to them, like, I want to testify. I mean, I could totally see it. Okay, Mommy Ball says, your conversation here is exactly why the defense wants to discuss why kids and adults with autism seem like weirdos. Okay. Well, I don't think they're weirdos. I just think, in the traffic stop, he just talked too much. Beautiful Messy Ball says he's very matter of fact, no change in behavior. He blatantly lied with no qualms about it regarding the crosswalk. Yeah, I mean, I thought they had crosswalks everywhere. And I don't feel like he struggles speaking. Okay, I feel like now I'm going to scroll back down to the current time for your comments. Yeah, hella excited utterance says, I have been thinking he wants to testify too. Yeah. I mean, the minute I started reading the stuff about the autism to strike the death penalty, I thought it was a twofold motion. Well, I thought they filed it for many reasons, actually, to be honest with you. I thought it was like in an effort to strike the death penalty, but I also thought they started talking about all these things in there. And I felt like there was a lot going on with it. They're like, he would make a poor witness. He has all these qualities that would make him a poor witness. And I was just like, he wants to testify. I bet he wants to testify. I mean, when I talked to people who went to DeSales with him, they said that he always wanted, he would like, I talked to this one student who went to DeSales with him, and he said that in the class about serial killers, he would always talk to Dr. Ramslin like the students felt like he was talking to her like he knew more than she did and stuff like that. So he was never shy about speaking up, like he never felt any qualms about it. So, well, this is a good point. Oh, I just lost your comment. Sorry, guys. Somebody just mentioned Lori Vallow. I am not going on the 9th. I will be at my house, covering it from my house, but I will not be going there in person. That would be cool, though, if I could go in person. Somebody just mentioned Lori Vallow. I do, Webby. Sorry, I'm trying to look at the comments as I'm going through. Oh, yeah, I'm going to put my email address in the comments. I'm putting this in the comments, guys. And if anybody has anything they want to send me, they can send it to my email address or any tips or anything like that. So I just put it in there. AnjanetteL@proton.me, like ME. You're welcome. Yeah, this is true. Forensic Frenzy, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. The state wants to force him to testify. Yes, they do want him to testify. This is a pretty common tactic too. This happened in the Pike County case too. Totally different set of circumstances and facts, but the prosecution totally wanted George Wagner IV. If you guys are not familiar with the case, Jake Wagner's brother, the state totally wanted him to testify. But in that case, you had two cooperating co-defendants. You had mom turning on her son. You had Jake turning on his brother. So they wanted to force George to testify, and they were going to play wiretaps. They did play wiretaps of George sounding horrible, horrible, total bully, mean guy. You know, he made Jake seem reasonable, which is like, oh my God. So yeah, so the way they forced him to kind of testify, and it was always going to be a thing, they did not play his interview at the Montana border with BCI and the one captain with the Pike County Sheriff's Office. So that kind of playing the wiretaps, but not playing his interview with the detectives, and then having mom and brother testify against him, it forced his hand. So George was forced to take the stand. So they want to cut off all paths to an alibi. The prosecution does. They want Kohberger to testify. The state does. And I think Kohberger wants to testify too. Dyspraxia, or Nomad Life says dyspraxia is definitely going to come up. It's common comorbidity with ASD. Anne has already alluded to it. My adult ASD son is dyspraxic too. Very well may. Totally might. Yeah, but they said it was like in class. I was often that student speaking with professors before and after class. There was somebody who said, there was somebody in here who said that Lori Vallow's trial got delayed because of competency issues. Okay, but that's a totally different ball of wax. Totally different. Totally different. I mean, way different. She could not assist with her defense. And I just don't, I mean, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes with Bryan Kohberger. We have no clue. I mean, he does look really skinny. Much thinner than he was before or when he was first taken into custody. Okay, so Coffee Cake is talking about George Wagner, the Wagner family. I don't understand how the brother gets a death sentence, but the guy who initiated it all walks free basically and gets to live his life. That is the craziest thing I've ever heard. Well, he doesn't. He gets a chance at parole after serving 32 years. And Jake is like, I don't think he's doing very well. He just got moved out of state. He was in protective custody at Toledo Correctional. Now he's been moved out of state. I want to talk about that another time. Stacey Ann, Lori's trial isn't starting on Monday. It is. It is definitely starting on Monday. Opening statements are on Monday. Guys, we'll be doing a live lunch show at 3:45 Eastern time on Law and Crime. If I can, I might have something going on here on Monday evening talking about the day's events. So I'm trying to arrange that. Lori Vallow's case in Arizona, where she's accused of conspiring with her brother Alex Cox to murder Charles Vallow, her estranged husband. Horrible, horrible, horrible case. So I have somebody I was going to have on possibly tonight to talk about Kohberger and Lori Vallow, but he couldn't do it. So we might do that on Monday night. So hella excited utterance. Lori is doing really well. Wait till you guys see the crime fix I did for Sunday about Lori getting all. Lori was not happy during that hearing last week, so you'll see it. Okay, Cat Q says the other commenter was referring to how Lori's previous trial was delayed. That was like the Idaho case where she was accused of and convicted of murdering Tylee and JJ and Tammy Daybell. So yeah. Oh my goodness. Tayo Toys is here. I was looking for you earlier. I was like, where's the guy with the jokes? I was like, where's Tayo Toys? If I mispronounced that, I'm sorry. Yeah, you guys, the Lori Vallow trial is going to be like off the hook, off the chain, as some people I know say. Some guy I used to work with, some guys I used to work with would always say off the chain. I loved it when they would say it because they were so funny when they would say it. Okay. Guys, I got to wrap this up. Why don't we reconvene another time? Maybe we can do this on, maybe we can do this again on Sunday. Maybe Sunday afternoon. I don't know. I'll try to schedule something this weekend, but it's been real. Again, like and subscribe. I appreciate you watching. And if you're watching on replay, wow, 2 hours and 15 minutes. That's been a long time. It flew by. So, oh my God, Tayo Toys. I won't be highlighting that one. But you guys, thank you so much. I appreciate it. We will reconvene another time and talk more about everything crime and all of that. So thanks again. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I'll see you here another time. I'm working on the sign off. Somebody suggested one about, and now I can't remember what it was, but it was really great. But thanks a lot, guys. I will see you here another time. Until next time, I'm working on the sign off. Bye-bye.